They thought it was nothing more than another throwaway comedy segment. For years, wrestling audiences had become accustomed to R-Truth's goofy sense of humor, his habit of fumbling names, mixing up situations, and creating laughs out of simple misunderstandings. It was part of his charm, the very reason fans loved him. So, when the cameras captured him in a backstage promo casually referring to John Cena as Ron Cena, the reaction was predictable. The crowd chuckled, the interviewer grinned, and most people watching at home figured it was just another dose of R-Truth's trademark silliness. Everyone assumed that once the laughs were over, the show would move along to its more serious, dramatic storylines. But what followed in the aftermath was something no one expected. It wasn't just a case of Brock Lesnar storming in and brutalizing R-Truth. No. What unfolded was the explosive climax of months of carefully orchestrated corporate manipulation, a sinister campaign of psychological conditioning, and a conspiracy so twisted that it turned comedy into a weapon. That lighthearted moment of laughter would become the spark that ignited one of the most violent, disturbing, and personal assaults in wrestling history, leaving fans, performers, and even insiders questioning the very foundations of the industry. What was presented as a random outburst of Brock's rage was in fact an act of revenge shaped by WWE's long-standing tactics of humiliation, manipulation, and psychological warfare. The deeper truth is that the so-called Ron Cena slip was not accidental, not harmless, not the product of R-Truth's lovable confusion. It was scripted, deliberately placed in his dialogue by WWE's creative team, designed as a coded message, a trigger engineered to set off Brock Lesnar, like a ticking time bomb. From the outside, it looked like R-Truth simply being himself. His endearing, confused delivery made the joke land perfectly. He genuinely appeared puzzled when he said Ron Cena, so much so that those in the arena thought he had just slipped up naturally. One backstage observer later explained that everyone assumed it was the sort of happy accident that always seemed to happen around R-Truth, those moments where an innocent mistake became comedy gold because of his natural timing. But in reality, this moment had been planted with precision. A former WWE writer, speaking anonymously, revealed that the Ron Cena line wasn't just written as a joke. It was part of a larger system designed to trigger Brock Lesnar, a man who had been systematically conditioned for months to respond with overwhelming violence when he heard specific verbal cues. It wasn't about the insult. It wasn't about Cena. It was about activating Brock like a machine. Psychologists who later examined the footage and behavior patterns confirmed the signs of behavioral programming. For months leading up to that night, Brock had been subjected to humiliation, subtle embarrassments, and controlled manipulation by the company's executives and creative team. They broke down his natural psychological defenses bit by bit, until he could be made to respond almost mechanically when exposed to certain triggers. The Ron Cena phrase, on its surface meaningless, was actually a carefully chosen code designed to flip a switch deep inside him. The WWE, according to insiders and leaked documents, had effectively turned one of the most dangerous athletes in the world into a controllable weapon, a human instrument of violence who could be unleashed whenever the corporation needed spectacle, intimidation, or the removal of a performer they deemed expendable. The most disturbing element of all of this wasn't simply the weaponization of Brock Lesnar's instincts, but the exploitation of R-Truth himself. He had no idea what was happening. To him, it was just another promo, another lighthearted moment to make people smile. Sources close to him later revealed that he believed his comedy was helping others, easing tension in the locker room and making serious storylines a little more entertaining. He never knew that his words were being used against him, that his innocence was the cover WWE needed to justify systematic violence. By convincing him that his verbal slips added levity, they ensured he would never question the material they gave him, never suspect that his natural charm was being turned into a trap. Internal WWE documents later revealed something even more chilling. The Ron Cena line was not an isolated phrase, but part of a larger protocol of triggers. Dozens of words and combinations were specifically designed to activate Brock's condition responses. Each one was tied to months of programming, calculated to transform him instantly from a calm professional into a predator. When R-Truth uttered those two simple words, It was as if a switch was flipped in Brock's brain. Eyewitnesses said they saw his entire demeanor change instantly. He wasn't simply angry, wasn't even emotional in the traditional sense. He became focused, mechanical, precise, as if acting out a script that had been drilled into his subconscious. The transformation was terrifying to behold. Within seconds, Brock shifted from casual interaction to cold, predatory violence. Observers compared it to watching someone activate a remote-controlled weapon. There was no gradual escalation, no buildup of tension. One moment, he was still. The next, he was systematically dismantling R-Truth with brutal efficiency. Every strike, every slam, every hold appeared deliberate, designed not just to inflict pain but to maximize the visual impact for the cameras. Medical professionals later noted that Brock targeted specific body parts in a sequence that suggested programming rather than instinct, attacking areas that would create the most dramatic injuries for television while still keeping R-Truth alive long enough for the cameras to capture his suffering. For R-Truth, the situation was heartbreaking. Completely unaware of what he had triggered, he tried desperately to defuse the violence with his natural humor, attempting to talk his way out of the beating. He kept asking what he had done wrong, kept trying to make light of the situation, believing Brock was just angry over something trivial. But Brock was no longer acting out of emotion. He was a man under conditioning, his natural instincts hijacked by programming that demanded destruction. R-Truth's charm, his innocence, his desperate attempts to appeal to reason, all of it was useless against corporate-designed psychological warfare. What made the moment even more tragic was the visible confusion and terror in his eyes as he realized he was being systematically destroyed for something he didn't even understand. The corporate response was perhaps the most telling detail of all. Rather than intervening to protect their performer, WWE doubled down on maximizing the spectacle. Cameras zoomed in for close-ups, slow-motion replays were prepared, and production trucks captured the violence from every possible angle. Medical staff were kept on standby, not to prevent injury, but to ensure that the violence could continue for as long as possible without ending in death. Every decision revealed that the destruction of R-Truth was not a mistake, not an accident, but a planned event engineered for ratings and control. And it wasn't just about R-Truth. The documents and testimonies that leaked